So I didn't grow up with the greatest understanding of personal finances. I grew up in a family of 6 and we were considered lower middle class. Add both my father and my brother's medical issues to it. As a family, we really didn't have a lot of cash lying around. As a result, I never really learned the impact that finances can have on your life. All I was really told was that you needed to make sure that you saved in case something bad happened and you would be able to cover it to the best of your ability. In fact, if I hadn't met my boss at my first internship, I would likely have the same limited understanding of finances today. So in today's video, I want to go over 5 pieces of financial advice that I would give to my 20-year-old self. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Tyler Warlow and I go by The Mengineer. I make videos on how to improve your life through confidence, capabilities, and overall happiness. When I was 20 years old, I had just began learning about the world of personal finances. And there was a lot that I didn't know, and as a result, a lot that I was stressing out about. There's a lot of information out there, so I was dealing with a little bit of information overload and analysis paralysis. Looking back, there's a few things that I would tell myself that might help jumpstart my financial journey. If that sounds interesting to you, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button to join me in the self-improvement journey. So the first financial lesson that I would tell my 20-year-old self is that money buys you freedom, but not necessarily happiness. Because of my income level growing up, I told myself that I was going to get a well-paying job once I graduated college. As a result, this led me to choose my career path of being an engineer. Now, don't get me wrong, this has been a great opportunity for me and I really enjoy the job that I'm currently doing, but just because I'm making more money doesn't mean that I'm happier. It offers me a level of freedom to do things that I might not otherwise be able to do, but I'm still bound to my job. I still have to work the same hours that anyone else would have to work. And my journey to get to this point was incredibly stressful and involved a lot of hard work. And there were points where I was seriously questioning whether or not I was going to finish college. I hit one of my darkest points that I had ever hit while in college, and that was kind of the moment where I learned that just because something might make you a lot of money doesn't mean that it's going to be a good thing for you and your mental health. When I look back at my time as a kid and my family, even though we didn't have a lot of money and we couldn't do a lot of the things that my friends at school were able to do, I wasn't any less happy. Typically the things that I was unhappy about or that I wanted was because other people were telling me that you should want it. For instance, when everyone else was getting a DS, I wanted a DS, but my parents luckily had the rule that I had to wait until I was older. And looking back, that never really affected my happiness as a kid. So yes, money does offer you some level of happiness by allowing you to have the freedom to do things that you want. However, it's only up to a certain point. After a certain point, once your needs are covered and some of your wants are covered, the more money that you have just also tends to offer more problems. A lot of people run into the issue where as they make more money, they spend more money. So they constantly get into this cycle where they are bound by how much money they have. In my opinion, I've realized that it's become far more important for me to find happiness in the things around me rather than happiness in the things that I can buy with my money. For instance, I find a lot more enjoyment now going out on hikes with friends than I do going out to a bar and spending a lot of money and getting drunk all night. The next piece of advice that I would have given myself was that you shouldn't compare your journey to the other people that you see. There's a lot of stories online about people very quickly making it to millionaire status at young ages in their early 20s or sometimes even earlier. But what they typically don't show you is the amount of time and sacrifice that goes into that, as well as the personal choices that they had to make. For instance, a lot of young entrepreneurs will typically sacrifice sleep hours in order to get some extra work hours in and progress their business. But unfortunately, that is not something I can do. If I don't get my 7 to 8 hours of sleep, I can get ocular migraines, which will actually incapacitate me for a day or two, rather than just the few hours of sleep I need. So that's something that I have to take into account for myself. Additionally, I was in school trying to get 2 degrees. These aren't excuses, but they're the truth about my personal circumstance. So I have to make sure that I'm taking steps that I'm able to take on my own terms and not comparing my progress to those who have done it at a faster rate. Any form of progress is still progress, so it's important to make sure that you're taking into account your own personal situation and the steps that you're able to take within that situation. If you're constantly comparing your own progress to those that you see online or around you, you're going to get yourself into this vicious cycle of believing you'll never achieve what you want to achieve. There are plenty of stories online of people who start their journeys at 30s and their 40s and are still able to successfully make it. So really the important part of it is getting started and doing consistent action. Keep your eye on the end goal and don't let other people's journeys distract you. Focus on your own journey and track your progress, because you'll be amazed how when you look back in a few years at where you were to where you are now, the amount of progress that you've made. But what are some of your own personal financial goals? I'd love to hear from some of y'all in the comments down below. I like to read and reply to each and every one of them. In the previous tip, I mentioned the progress that you'd be making on your own journey, and that's going to lead me into this next tip. My next tip is that it is much better overall for you to take small, consistent steps in your journey rather than just diving into the deep end and going into a ton of detail super quick, but then burning yourself out and not touching it again for a few months. Consistent progress is the key to the game. This can be done on a few different fronts, such as the education front. You can make sure that you're regularly taking time either to read books or listen to podcasts on subjects that will help teach you more about your financial resources. But you can also aim to just take small, consistent steps in your financial journey. For instance, just set that small recurring savings amount to be sent to your savings account. That's going to start getting you ready for an emergency fund. Once you reach that point, you can set a small amount aside per month to go towards your investments account. And as you start to make more money in your journey, you can set aside more and more. But because you took the time to get that small amount started, you've already taken a step in the right direction, and that's getting you further than where you would have been before. Don't get me wrong, I completely get being excited and trying to learn as much as you can, but sometimes that can lead to information overload and people will get a little bit burnt out or end up facing analysis paralysis like I did and never end up actually making the decision for a couple years, even though they'd already been learning about personal finances for a bit. It took me about 1.5 to 2 years from when I started learning about personal finances to when I actually started beginning to invest my money, because I had tried to learn so much and I had learned about all these different paths. So I was like, well, I don't know which one is the best route for me. And as a result, I lost out on that 1.5 years of when I could have been doing something. So make sure that you're taking small, consistent steps that move you in the right direction, rather than just doing these all-in approaches that can very quickly burn you out or lead to you facing analysis paralysis. The next thing that I would have told my 20-year-old self when it comes to money is do not cut out the things in your budget that bring you happiness. When I first started getting into personal finance, I was like, oh, I have to cut down on my spending as much as possible. I was giving myself about $20 a month in order to do personal spending, which unfortunately in college is about enough for 2 meals. This didn't leave me any wiggle room to go out and do things with my friends, which when you're in college, it's really a great time in your life to go and have those social experiences. Don't get me wrong, you can still make a budget and make sure that you're falling within that, but you should be leaving room to do the things that bring you happiness. If you cut out everything, then you're going to cut out the things that bring you joy. And then you're so much less likely to stick with your budget because you're depriving yourself of the things that you really enjoyed doing. And when you deprive yourself of those things, it makes you hate sticking to that budget. Rather, the better approach for you to do is set up a budget, track your expenses, figure out what you're spending a lot of money on, and in areas that you really don't care that much about, choose to cut back. For instance, a lot of my friends were really big beer drinkers in college, but myself personally, I didn't drink that much beer. So when we would go to the grocery store and they would spend around $50 on beers to get these nice craft beers, I just would stick with what I usually got and keep my grocery bill lower. However, if people asked about going out and participating in fun activities, I would typically join in on those because it was a fun time and I got to know my friends and get closer with them. Those were the things that truly brought me happiness, so I made sure to leave room in my budget to do it. If I had learned this earlier on, this would have made it so that I stuck to my budget much better in those first few years of learning about personal finance. This next tip is going to kind of tie back into the third tip, but when you first start your personal finance journey, focus on one thing at a time. When you're first getting into a new subject, it is so easy to get super excited and want to learn about everything that there is out there. The unfortunate issue with that is it leads to shiny object syndrome. So the next thing that's interesting, you kind of abandon the thing that you were already working on. As a result, you never really learn to the best of your ability the subject that you were already learning. This leads to you not really being well versed in any subject and not having a strong enough understanding to do things on your own. What I personally would have advised myself back then is that I should take the time to learn something as well as I could and establish the systems for that, such as investing into an investment account, setting up those recurring investments, what might be the best investments to choose to help me in my financial journey before I moved on to starting to learn about the next thing, such as real estate investing. Trying to learn so many new things at once makes it difficult to really learn one effectively. And especially when you have other things going on in your life that also require you to learn new things, such as a new career, it can be hard to juggle all that new information. So take it one subject at a time, focus on getting really good at that subject and well versed in that subject, maybe even to the point where you can teach other people, and then you can move on to the next thing. This is going to make you so much more knowledgeable on the subjects that you do know on your personal finance journey, and it's going to help push you in the direction that you want to go for the rest of your life. But that's going to bring us to the end of the video, guys. If you found the video to be helpful or informative at all, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe. It helps the channel to grow and reach new people. If you have any thoughts, ideas, or opinions of your own, be sure to let me know with a comment down below. I like to read and respond to all of them. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you. If you're interested in more videos where I talk about the subject of personal finances, be sure to check out this video right here where I talk about how we saved for our wedding. If you're more interested in my most recent videos, be sure to check out this video right here. But until the next time, this is the Mengineer, signing off.